Welcome back to another episode of The Rack Show. You're listening to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show. My name is Tim Kelly, and with me I have Frank Horvath. And we are going to be discussing everything that's involving the responsibly armed citizen.
Yeah.
So, before we get started, we've just got through the holidays or through Thanksgiving and Black Friday, chaos and all that stuff. So how'd everything go for you, Frank?
It was absolutely uneventful, which is fantastic. They got to have a quiet, Thanksgiving and holiday with my family, just my immediate family, my wife and kids, and that was fantastic. So this year, my family's doing something a little bit different. We're all getting together for a Thanksmas. I don't know. So about mid-December. So we're all going to get together and have our big, joint thing. Just our families are literally scattered across the states now. So that's kind of the time we're all going to get together. But things have been fantastic. How about you, Tim? How was your holiday weekend?
I think we might have to steal something from your playbook there, because though it was nice and relaxing and pretty chill the whole weekend, took the whole weekend off. But the little ones got sick.
Oh.
So this time of year, T's family gets together every year, and they come in a horde of people.
Yep.
And they all meet up at someone's house. We kind of trade off every year. And they were able to do that this year, but I had to stay home with the kids and let T go. And so really missed out on some great opportunities to see family and stuff like that. But maybe we can work something out to where we do that again towards Christmas time or something. It'd be nice to see everybody again. But yeah, other than that, man, it was nice. Took Kipley hunting, and he got to pick out his first deer I shot. About 184 yards.
All right.
It's pretty cool. And Addie tracked it. And
cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed our weekend and made some memories, even though they were under the weather.
Right. So. Well, that's great. That's great to hear. So while we're talking about the holidays, right? We're talking about all this, the craziness that happens around the holiday season. One thing that is, especially in our industry, is a big telltale that holiday season's here is everybody starts slacking off. Everybody starts backing off on training. Yep. And I'm not just talking about, the work on firearm skills or self-defense. I'm talking about the gym. You're talking about, going and doing things. We're spending more time with family. We're eating a little more turkey and food than we probably should, right? So there's a lot that's involved in there. But the piece, the thing that is concerning to me is, we have all these big events, right? We have like, Black Friday, that happened. We had Cyber Monday. We had these big box stores who have these, or small business Saturday, like they have these big box stores that have all these sales. They have all these people that are amassing these stores. And crime just magically shoots up when all this happens, right?
Imagine that.
I know it's almost it's almost like there's targets being painted on people's backs when they're pushing buggies full of stuff, and you got screaming kids all around. It's easy.
Go figure. Criminals profile too.
I know, right? But the reason I bring that up is I had some phone calls the other day. Where people were reaching out, seeking some guidance, right? Seeking some thoughts, some ideas about self-defense, a little bit about how to see some of these things that are happening before it's an issue, and the reason why these conversations were coming up is because they had situations where they had felt uncomfortable. They had situations where something may have happened. And they were seeking out guidance after the fact.
Right.
They were trying to come and figure out, what can I do? This happened to me. What can I do, to prevent this from happening again? Good on them. But is it already too late? Like, when are you supposed to start training? When is a good idea? Is it okay? I've been a victim, so let me go ahead and start seeking this out, or is that preemptive more appropriate?
It's on a bright and sunny day when you're feeling happy and everything's working right in your life. That's when you really want to start it. No, man, the answer is now. The answer is you need to start training yourself now. There's so many things wrong with what you just said, right? If somebody's calling a business who specializes in self-defense and they have just experienced being accosted by someone or something like that, and now they're saying, look, I think I need some training. And if one of the first things that come out of their mouth is, I think I need some training in situational awareness. Situational awareness is not, it's not a tool that you can access. It's just a mentality.
Right.
So like you can't access this tool and beat someone off of you with this mentality.
Right.
Right. You have to you have to use that and have that knowledge and tools that you can access to defend yourself. So situational awareness only goes so far. And so if we're not training, right? If we're not actively pursuing this craft of self-defense and that type of thing, not saying that this needs to be your, what you eat, sleep, and breathe. All that situational awareness is going to do is say, yep, that train's coming.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Guess it's coming.
Yep.
And, oh, look, I can't outrun it. And look, I'm in a really, really bad bind, and I literally have nothing else that I can bring to the fight.
Right.
So the situational awareness. The other thing that's bad about this is, as you said, it's after the fact. Why are we waiting until after the fact? Well, because most of us walk around our daily lives and we're comfortable and rather complacent.
Yeah, nobody's going to hurt me.
Right.
Like I'm a good person. Like that's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree. There's people, and at one point I was one of these people, right? I was like, hey, I'm a good person. I'm a young, strapping, male. Like, who's going to bother me? And then, then things happen. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not as cool as I thought I was.
Yeah.
So there's I think it was Tom Givens that said in one of the courses we've taken with him, it was like, the two main questions that victims have, or right, that mentality that they have is, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? So that denial, or why this is happening to me, I'm a good person.
Right.
And that kind of mentality is really, I think, is the root of our society,
Right.
of our modern day. There's police, right? There's other people that can save me in my time of need.
Right.
Is there?
No, that's just straight up denial.
Right.
That's not something that's not a very realistic, method for protection. But what else was said in these phone calls? You said they called Apache the business number on and was inquiring about certain things. So can you share a little bit more about those conversations?
So again, we had some individuals that would call. They, in both instances, they were accosted in a parking lot at a big box store. So they had got done purchasing something coming out. They had, in one instance, there was a parent with two children. Right, and one parent was taking care of the two children, taking them in, and getting them inside the vehicle, and the other was loading things inside the vehicle, and they were approached. Again, in that instance, it was just like an uneasy feeling that this person had that was calling us. And what was interesting about that conversation was they needed to double check with their spouse, make sure like, hey, they can be interested in coming getting training, and then the spouse ended up turning them down because it wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
So that's definitely something that I think we should continue to talk about, and we'll do just that. You're listening to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show on the world famous WSIC. We're going to take a quick break here in just a little bit, but we're going to continue to talk about the need for training, and we're going to pull that a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about what if your family's not necessarily on board with this, you picking up a new habit, or you starting to work or train a little bit. Let's continue the conversation. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show. We're continuing to have a conversation about training and the families and just everything that kind of happened over the holiday season, or it's, I guess, continuing to happen over the holiday season. Things that we have heard of since all the shopping and things like that. So continuing to talk about a little bit, what we were going over before the break. The particular gentleman had ended up calling. Was all gung ho, real interested in coming out and doing some training with us on again, not even the use of deadly force. He was really looking more for some less than lethal options, some ideas as far as how can how could they potentially handle that situation specifically a little bit better as a family unit. Anyway. So get off the phone with him, calling back and saying, hey, look, I really appreciate you talking with me. I was on the phone with him for probably 20, 30 minutes. Really appreciate you talking with me. My spouse isn't interested and they doesn't think that's that big of a deal. So we're not going to pursue this anymore. And man, that was a gut punch. I remember calling you after that, after one of those conversations. I'm like, listen to this. And that it is all too familiar, right? So we've heard it over and over again. Hey, one person, something happens or they have a thought. It's like a friend tells them about, hey, you should come out and train. And then they end up going and talking to a significant other, a spouse, somebody. And it's not as important to them, right? Or they have a different thought and they get talked out of it.
That's why I said a while ago, this is a situational awareness thing, and the mentality of being prepared it's just that. It is a mentality, and some people just do not have yet, or will probably never have, that mentality. I have family members, close friends, many who have suggested that I'm paranoid, or that I live in a state of fear, or something along those lines, and that's why you carry a gun, or that's why you do this or do that. No, I don't live in a state of fear. I live very comfortably and enjoy my life. I am a regular, everyday citizen, just like you. Yep. The only thing different is if someone wanted to do me harm, I am well prepared to handle that situation. Versus the person that believes that could never happen to them, they are not.
Right.
They are not prepared for that. And those preparations don't interfere with my everyday life.
No.
They don't. I can still go play at the park with my kids. I can still, I can still go to the kids' dance classes and recitals and stuff like that. I can still go out to dinner with my family. I can still go shopping. I can still go do all of these things just like everybody else. Right. It doesn't make me paranoid or living in fear to have this mentality. Right. And this state of denial, it's almost a refusal. Like I absolutely refuse to believe that this could happen to me. Mm-hmm. So it's not surprising to me that someone would look at that situation and say, you know what, that wasn't all that scary. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not get amped up on that. Well, here's my question. You don't want to get amped up over some suspicions in a parking lot on Black Friday when you've read news articles, you've seen it on FaceSpace, you've seen it all over the place, you've seen videos of people being assaulted. You know that it's possible, but you don't believe it's possible for you. So when is it that you're going to choose to go and get training? Are you going to wait until your husband is getting his face kicked in the middle of a Costco parking lot? Is that when you're going to decide to call Apache Solutions and say, hey, we need training after my husband heals up? Right. That's best case scenario. Right. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
And I, in a perfect world, I want to say maybe it's not necessarily, that state of denial, right? We hear that all the time. Sure. I'm hoping, it is my hope that people just don't know. Right? Sure. They're not aware of, hey, maybe I should consider this, right? So hopefully that's what the Rack Show is doing right now. Hopefully we're spreading the word a little bit, was it preaching the law of the gauge or something like that, right? So we're saying, hey, look, there's things out there, we're exposing you now. Now that you know this, take action.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying come to Apache. I'm not necessarily saying come to Apache, but seek further training. If you don't have significant attitude skills, right? If you don't know how to verbalize things to help maybe mitigate a certain situation, well, pick up a class or work on that. Learn how to keep your head up, right? Get out of the phone. There's just little things that you can do that will set you way better off than where you are today. Go ahead.
If you're curious about this, to our listeners and our viewers, go ahead and break out your pen and paper and pause for dramatic effect. Read a book. Read a book, guys. If you don't want that personable experience of going out and taking a class or working with a trainer or something like that, read a book. And there's plenty of them out there. So if you got that pen and paper ready, look up Defensive Living by Dave Spalding, Concealed Carry Class by Tom Givens, or Varg Freeborn. Help me out here. Look up the author, Varg Freeborn. The name of the book is just left me. Either way, you're still trying to find your pen and paper, so it's okay. I'll think of it in a moment. Anyway, there are a ton of excellent books out there that you can look into and learn so much just by
Violence of Mind.
Violence of Mind. Yeah, he's actually got 2 editions of that book.
Yep.
Those are all excellent opportunities for you to train without actually going out and taking a class somewhere with a bunch of people you don't know. I totally get that, but don't think that that's your only option. All right, like get some information first, and then start making your educated decisions to go out and train.
See, and again, the other thing is, just like we had already said, it doesn't have to be deadly force. Like, there are so many other things that you can do that before you get to deadly force, and that's most likely what's going to happen anyway. Yeah. So just like the analogy you're talking about, the freight train, right? You see the train coming, right? It's coming at you. There's things that you potentially could, again, every situation is different, but there's things that you potentially can do to help mitigate your impact with the train, right? Yeah. So if you see something, if you recognize the signs of this might go ugly, or this posture doesn't look right, or this just feels off to me, then there are potentially things that you can do if you know how to recognize those signs, and if you have some sort of idea, some sort of exposure to what you can do to help mitigate that.
Right.
And it's not always deadly force. Like, that's the thing. We're responsibly armed citizens. But the armed part, the piece that we're going to be forced to use deadly force, like God forbid, if we need to use deadly force, that is a last ditch effort. That is literally the last thing the last tool that we're going to, the last thing that we're going to be using to in that situation. There are so many other things that we can do, and most of them have nothing to do with the tool. Right. Most of them have to do with your mindset, the skills, being able to see exactly what's happening around you, keeping your head up. I mean, there's so much there that people just take for granted. Right. And again, they have those feelings of, look, my family doesn't, my entire family is not fully bought into this, or they don't want to get. I understand. I really do, but why are you letting them hold you back from your self-preservation?
Right.
Are you always with everyone in your family at all times?
What's strange about this to me is it's generally reversed.
Right.
Right. It's usually the wife or the daughter or something like that that's literally dropped off at Apache, and they're like, hey, I already know how to shoot a gun, so just get her up to my speed. And I look at them like, it ain't going to be long, buddy. Right. Give me an hour or two, and you should probably just stay here too. Right. Right. That's usually what we run into, but this isn't the case.
It's not.
So I don't think there's, as you said a while ago, I don't think there's ego attached to that. Maybe there isn't denial there. Maybe it is. They just don't know. Right. They just don't know, or they don't recognize it, right? Or don't recognize it as a possibility. It's hard to believe that violence can happen to you if you've never been exposed to violence.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you've never been a victim of anything, if you've never been bullied, you've never gotten to, something as small as a, elementary school hair pulling, fight that ended up in detention. Like, if you've never had any of those things happen, if you've just lived a completely unscathed lifestyle, it's totally understandable that you wouldn't recognize, that violence could happen to you.
Excuse me. Had a bug.
Okay. So while Frank's gaining his composure, what we're trying to get at here is if you're unprepared for these things, and that includes your mentality, your previous experiences, and lifestyle that you live, you have a lesser chance of overcoming some of these more dangerous obstacles that are put in front of you. So, not that you really ever need to access this, but if you did, you're totally prepared for it, right? You can still walk around and continue on your normal daily life, and not have to, be concerned necessarily with your inability to protect yourself.
Right.
Now doing okay?
Now that I'm back from living out a fly or something flying my throat. Anyway, no. What I was gonna say before I was so rudely interrupted by me, that everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face.
Yeah.
And I mean that's the the other piece of that is even if you do go out and you seek we'll call it just firearms training or something like that, if you're not expanding in that, if you're only focused on one itty bitty little tiny niche of the least least common denominator, the least possible thing that's going to happen to you, then you're not really doing an efficient job.
Right.
There's again, just like we had said, the use of deadly force is literally the last thing, and it's hopefully, right, statistically, it's going to be the least common thing that's going to happen to you. So you don't need to focus all of your efforts, all of your energy, all of your being into that one specific thing.
Right.
I think you need to diversify.
Yeah.
I really think that's what we're pushing forward. We're not just talking about using those deadly force skills. We're talking about just like in general, like just a mindset, a thought. Like there's so much that's involved that people just don't think about.
We were talking about like when do you start? Where do you start? Well, I think a perfect opportunity here would be to call our friend Cecil Birch.
Yeah.
And talk to him about his classes coming up in January. If you want to know when to start, this would be a great place to do it, because you don't need a firearm, you don't need firearm skills, you don't need any of that, but you can learn a great deal of how to protect yourself from Cecil. And he'll be coming to see us in January. So why don't we get him on the hook when we come back from our next break?
Let's do that.
And see what he has to say about this.
I like it.
We'll be right back.
Be right back.
And welcome back to the RAC Show, the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show, where we talk about everything regarding the responsibly armed citizen. My name is Tim Kelly. With me, I have Frank Horvath. And as we discussed in the last segment, We're going to be bringing in Cecil Birch from Immediate Action Combatives. Cecil's actually going to be coming to Apache Solutions in Yadkinville this January. So, Cecil, how are you, man?
Good. How about you guys?
Oh, we're fantastic.
Cecil, tell me real quick, what's the weather right now?
The weather?
Yeah.
Chilly.
Yeah, it's cold.
It's been pretty close in the 20s,
Ooh.
all week this week. So during the day, it's got up in the 30s and that sort of thing. But it's been pretty cold.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So we've been talking about in this episode, we've been talking about like when you should start training. We've hit on some stuff about some of the issues that we've dealt with potential students and clients during the Black Friday the Black Friday season and some of the dangers that exist out there. And just some of the training mentality that exists, and then the opposing side, like family not supporting the idea of going, like they don't think they really need it. There's just so much we've been talking about in this episode, and I really wanted to include you in on this, especially since you're coming out so soon. But what's your take on when you should actually start training?
Today.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I mean, and it's not the facetious way. It's too early here. It's only like 9:00 here, so I'm still. I don't mean it in like a smart alecky way. It's start training as soon as you can. I think there's a lot of paralysis by analysis in a lot of the self-preservation community. It's well, especially if you start really truly looking at it, it's not a one solution problem. It's, I'll get my gun and carry that. That's part of it for sure. But there's also maybe OC spray is probably a good idea.
Right.
And maybe understanding the pre-fight threat containment, verbal judo and de-escalation and deselection and understanding violent criminal actors. And then there's some aspect of maybe having some kind of health and vitality with it, maybe some hands-on, maybe some other tools. And you start going, but there's so much I have to train and I got to do, and then the legal stuff and probably I should some medical stuff. And then people go, well, what should I do? I should do this class. I should do this. It's like, just do something, I'm a believer in just doing something. It's the Japanese thought of Kaizen, where just every day you get better. And that might only be like 1/100th of 1%, but you're still getting better. You're still moving forward. I had one of my longtime martial art instructors back in the 80s told me this analogy. He said, Cecil, training should be like every day you put a piece of paper on your desk, one piece of paper. And he goes, it's not a lot of energy, not a lot of effort. And at the end of the week, it doesn't look like much. At the end of the month, it doesn't look like much. But 2-3 years in, you've got over a ream of paper on your desk. That's right. That's your training. That's your experience. That's your input. And it's better than not. It's better than waiting for that perfect moment. I'm going to start in January 1. I'm going to start eating better and I'm going to start exercising and I'm going to start getting to the range and shooting, et cetera, et cetera. No, you're not. You're not going to do all of that, any of that, because it's too much. How about today? Just go, you know what? After dinner, I'm going to go for a 45-minute walk. Boom, boom. I'm sorry, guys. That's training. That's doing
Absolutely.
something.
Yep.
Well, there went our entire episode on the New Year's resolution. Thanks, Cecil. Appreciate that. So, okay. Cecil, you've been talking about martial arts and that type of thing. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell people who you are and a little bit about your background and what you offer currently.
Sure. So, I've been a martial artist for 45 years. I don't do any other cool guy stuff. Never been law enforcement or military. I was just sort of a average dude, but I fell in love with fighting and self-defense. Literally 45. This is my 45th year of doing it, and once I started, I never stopped. There was never a moment where I wasn't actively training a system under instructor in those 45 years.
Awesome.
And at this point, I've trained, like I say, everything, because I pretty much have. If somebody's heard of a system, I probably spent some time in it. I might even have instructor creds in it. I've overall the time. Most of my focus the last 25 years has been what a lot of people refer to as the combat sports, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, wrestling, and then how that applies in a modern day self-preservation environment with the presence of possibility of weapons on either side, good guy and bad, or both, multiple opponents. What are the legal ramifications and justifications that you can use? All that's sort of the last 25 years of how this all works together. And kind of my own focus is how I teach it. How do I get this across to not me, right? I know I'm going to be training. I'm going to be on the mats here in a couple hours, and I'll be there most of the day. That's easy to reach me. It's how do I reach the other person who, again, has got, you got a couple kids and you got the day, because I've only this last year, I've been a full-time professional. Up to this point, I had a white-collar professional day job, and so I had to work around all these issues. And I had kids. I raised 2 kids, and all that kind of stuff. So how do we fit all of this together? How can we get a functional self-preservation skill set for people, for what Pat Rogers always called average Earth people?
Right.
Because that's me. I'm just average Earth people. I'm not anything fancy.
You're here. You're amongst friends.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been trying to express that to our audience pretty much in every episode that we offer. This is about the responsibly armed citizen, and we come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, and flavors. We're all different, but it's more about a mentality than anything else. And the self-preservation, and you mentioned that quite a few times, but that's really what this is about, is going on about your daily life, being your normal self, but just having some knowledge and tools that you could access in the event you need to defend yourself.
Right.
And that's really what it's about. I mean, you can still have the same fun personality. You don't have to walk around like you're militaristic or something along those lines. You don't have to be a cop to do this. But speaking of that, you in your class that you have coming up in January, we only got about 5 minutes just to let you know. But okay. in the class that you have coming up in January, I get a lot of questions from our large variety of students that come out and train with us. And one of them is, man, I see pictures of him like rolling around on the ground with somebody, and like it just looks violent. It looks hard. It looks like I might get injured. I've got a bad back. I've got a bad knee. My wrist hurts.
I got a paper cut this morning.
Yes, something along those lines. What do you have to say to those folks?
To some extent, they're right. On the level of, like, if you're going to seriously get into deep in the weeds of that pursuit, it can be that way. And for me, a lot of times it is. But that doesn't mean that's the totality of it. You can do this at whatever level of intensity, of pressure, of energy output that you feel appropriate. I've had guys as old as in their mid-70s. I had one guy who had just had open heart surgery not quite a year prior. And he was 73, maybe. I've had multiple people like that. I've had kids as young as 13 do the class. I've had people who just come off knee surgery. I've had, high level fighters and professional fighters, air marshals, tier 1 opera. I've had all of it, and they all get something out of it, because it's all about what you need. So we always say, when you're training, when you're working with somebody, be the partner that your partner needs. Maybe
right.
If you're going with me, I need you to put 100% pressure and try to beat me up. Right. Maybe when I go with this guy, this is his first time doing it, what he needs is me to put just a minimum, tiny bit of pressure and help him work through the moves. Right. Anybody can do this stuff. It's not Fight Club. It is absolutely not Fight Club. It is all of us helping each other, from me on down to every other student, helping the other students learn to get better and to deal with dirt bags out there who aren't going to care that you've got a physical excuse.
Right.
Quality, you're more likely to be targeted because you've got, oh, I have a bad knee. Okay, well, you're the wounded gazelle at the water hole.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, there's a good chance. Like, honestly, I don't get picked on anymore, right? At this point in my life, I don't remember the last time I've been truly targeted. It's probably been about 2 years now at this point. And that was because I was in a horrible town late at night, you know, but as soon as that guy saw, I basically turned and squared up to him and stared at him. He veered off, right? I'm not getting picked on because I don't look like it. But if you're an older person, you have a limp, you've got some injury, you know what? That's not the excuse to not do something. It's probably the excuse to do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're going to go like fight like you're in the UFC, you know, and train like it. But you have to put a little pressure, you know, not pressure, that's not the right term, but you have to put a little effort into it.
Sure.
And again, in my coursework, again, it doesn't matter. You can go if you need to take a break, if you go, hey, dude, can you give me just like 5% pressure? No problem. I give the first thing I do at the beginning of class is set that idea that we work with the appropriate pressure that our partner needs.
Awesome.
And I've never had in 18 years, I've never had a serious injury because of that kind of thing. So literally anybody can do it.
Fantastic. So you're saying that in your class that you're going to be teaching up here in Yadkinville this January, student controls the pace of which they learn and the intensity by which they learn.
100%. I never set the standard. I set the potential standard. Like, I don't want you going over this, but I don't set the minimum. The minimum is what you feel you need to do. Like, I might say, okay, guys, do not go at 100%. Don't go more than 50.
Right.
But maybe for you, your 50% is more like everybody's 10%. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
Awesome. Well, Cecil, it's been awesome talking with you, man. I really appreciate you calling in this morning, and I'm really looking forward to your class in January. It's been a long time coming. Super excited to have you out. So
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Everybody's always like, "Oh, all the Apache guys are so cool." So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to get out there and find out for myself.
welcome back to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show, where we talk about all things responsibly armed citizens should know. We've had an awesome show today. We've got talking about training, when to train, what if the family decides they don't want to train or it's not that important to us. We had an awesome guest speaker, Cecil Birch, who's actually going to be coming and teaching a course at Apache here in January. So you can find more information on that online. There's quite a bit that's going on. So as we move on, I think the biggest takeaway, right? The biggest thing that we want our listeners to go home with is, look, start training, right? Do what Cecil said, right? It's decide today, hey, I'm gonna go for a walk, right? 45-minute walk, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be this high speed, skill set or something that you really just have to go and get from the most elite of the elite in order to learn and do. Like, you can literally start today. Right. You can decide, hey, instead of it's cold out. Sure, instead of going out and getting out cold, pick up a book. Right, just do something to better yourself, so that you are better than who you were yesterday, or better than you are today. That continual growth, that continual improvement. Speaking of continual growth and continual improvement, we're going to continue with our theme, what we do on the last segment of every one of our shows, the competency of the month. So, Tim, what is our competency of the month for the month of December?
Okay, because I have to explain this in every single episode, because we might have new listeners, and I just love hearing myself talk. Let's explain what Competency of the Month actually is. So Competency of the Month was actually an in-house program that we put together to help challenge the rest of our cadre. So every month we send out this message and a topic, essentially, to discuss or speak on. And it's meant to challenge the knowledge base of our cadre on self-defense related topics. And since we started the Rack Show, we thought it'd be a great idea to implement that in with our Rack Show and introduce our audience to some of these competencies and challenge you all with gaining the knowledge necessary for this and sharing our own.
Yeah.
So discuss cold weather for concealed carry. That is the competency of the month. How does cold weather have anything to do with concealed carry?
So if you talk to any of the gun fuds of the world, they were like, "Oh well, winter means I can carry a bigger gun," right? So there may be some truth to that. There is some truth to that, but it's definitely something to consider, right? And if you look back through gun history, and this is one of the things that I really enjoy. Look at different areas of our nation, right? Some places have way colder weather than we have, and so specific modifications, specific things you have to take into account for what you're doing and what you're wearing and how you're going to be accessing your gear, things of that nature. One of the things that immediately comes to mind is a fit special. Mm-hmm. So that was where the trigger guard was cut out, right? Mm-hmm. So that there was readily access to the trigger on the revolver, and that was so that when you're wearing gloves, that it's you can still readily access that trigger. You can still readily access that firearm and use that firearm when you have thick cover garments and things like that on.
Put your Dremel tool down, audience.
Oh yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. But if we go back in history and look, like that was specifically what it was used for.
Right.
And but again, there are so many things to consider. So if you start wearing like these big cover garments, you start wearing these bigger jackets, you start wearing heavier we'll say like sweatshirts and stuff like that. You still need to be able to conceal your firearm if you're using a firearm or your tool, whatever it may be. And you still need to safely and efficiently be able to access that tool.
Right. And
you need to practice.
Right.
Dry fire practice, making sure that you can still clear your garment, making sure your garment's not getting snagged on things.
Right.
I remember years ago, we had a private session. It was cold out. We're working on different. We're dry. We're working on accessing these big jackets and stuff like that. And we had a student who had got their jacket and had like a liner that was on the inside, and actually got caught on their firearm as they were drawing. So that gun came up and out of the holster. They didn't expect it, right? Again, we were dry. That's why we were doing this. That's why we were testing and making sure that this cover garment was working.
Dry means he didn't have any ammunition in the gun.
Right. Yeah. The firearm was inert at the time. And anyway, so because of that, right, we were able to identify, hey, that particular cover garment may not be the best thing for you to utilize while you were carrying, or we needed to modify the cover garment so to make it safe for concealed carry in that particular instance. And again, there's so many times that I've heard people say like, "Oh, it's time for me to carry a bigger gun or switch it up." Which again, I've fallen into that myself.
I have to.
It's easy, but there's you need to take a pause. You need to say, "Hey, can I still access my gear? Can I still access things safely?" The other thing that I would add is, again, and this is, it may not necessarily be common knowledge, and this may just be my personal opinion, but you need to make sure that you are one garment away from your concealed firearm. So what I mean by that is if you wear layers, so if you have like an undershirt and you have a hoodie on and a jacket or something like that, you need to tuck that hoodie right on behind your firearm so that you're only clearing a single garment in order to get to your firearm. I've seen this mistake happen over and over and over and over and over again, where somebody will have multiple layers on. They'll have a hoodie, a sweatshirt, they'll have a jacket, they'll have a t-shirt, and then their gun is buried under 4 layers of garment. And trying to get through 4 layers of garment to get to your firearm or to your other tool is miserable. Right. It's not ideal. It's significantly slow. It significantly increases chances of failure. There's a lot of things there to think about.
And you can't always do that. And maybe most of the weather in North Carolina, and the region that we live in, we can pretty well get away with that. Having one garment. When that got challenged first for me was in a conversation with Dan Brady when I was talking about the nonsense idea of having a pocket pistol, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute. You're spoiled to this type of weather. When you live in a place like Vermont, and you have all of these different layers of clothing on. You have gloves and everything else, and a toboggan, all this. Like you just can't tuck in your second jacket, behind your gun. It just doesn't work well that way. Right. So, he talked about putting a small snubby revolver in his jacket pocket so it was quicker for him to access, and that would ideally or theoretically buy him a little more time to access his larger handgun that he is more proficient with. But he still had quick access to that gun
and
quicker.
And I want to make sure that we're clear. That little snubby pocket gun was still in a holster.
Sure.
Right. It's still secured. It's just it's more readily accessible. Right. It's easier to get into. It's easier to, especially when you have a thick outer layer or something like that.
And there are a ton of options out there for pocket holsters, and they have that's what they're designed for is for a pocket. Mika holsters is one of the holsters I really like to use. As MIKA holsters. You just Google him, and he's a really cool guy. Anyway, I think DeSantis makes a halfway decent one, and there's a couple others. I don't know all of the pocket holsters, but there are quality ones that exist out there for the purpose of pocket carry. But anyhow, my point is you are losing a ton of time in your draw stroke when you have to unravel yourself like a Christmas present, in the wintertime to get to your gun. So find a way to cheat. Find a way to cheat. If that means tucking the extra garments in behind your gun, then great. If that means moving your backup gun to a more easily accessible location like a jacket pocket instead of a pocket holster or something like that, then so be it. There are just many different options that you need to be looking at.
Something else that I would also consider is the garment itself. There are so many things that you can do to a garment. Actually, I'll grab my jacket here in just a minute, but so I have this awesome big Carhartt jacket that I have, and ended up taking it somewhere and having them put zippers all the way down the sides so that it breaks freely. from the outside looking in, you can't tell. Like if you're just looking at the jacket, you're like, okay, cool, that's a cool Carhartt jacket. But if you take a moment and look at it, there's zippers that go all the way up the side, so it breaks free when I go and grab the garment. And that's, again, my outer garment. So instead of me trying to fight this big old jacket, the whole front of it will break free.
Yep.
And then I can still get access to my tool. You know, there's a number of other, and that was a custom job, but there's a number of other companies that are out there that have jackets, they have things, garments designed just for that would work well in cold weather.
511's got
511, yep, 511's got a couple of them. Loki Defense has another that I really enjoy.
Victos has their hoodie.
Yep.
That has the zippers on the side too. So yeah, it's
the thing I would say about that is get the garment and practice train with the garment, because there is a little bit of a learning curve there, and you want to make sure that all the little bugs and kinks and things like that are mitigated, because not all garments are created the same.
You know, and that's where your previous training really pays off, especially if you're holding yourself to a specific metric. Like, I know what my typical draw stroke looks like at a specific distance. What you're going to find is it's going to be really challenging to meet that same metric when you've got a whole bunch of clothes on.
Right.
But it can also make you a much better shooter if you start practicing. Right. So you practice clearing through all of those different layers. You wouldn't believe just the amount of dexterity that you lose when your fingers are cold.
Absolutely.
Right. When your hands are cold, or when you have the pressures of bulky sleeves and stuff like that, or sleeves that extend on beyond your wrists.
Suit jackets.
Yeah, man. You have so many different things that you have to
account for.
Yeah, you have to account for many different variables than what you're used to in a t-shirt and shorts in the summertime.
Right.
And if you don't account for those now, then you're likely to have to account for them when you're really
in the moment.
Yeah, and that's not when you want to do it.
No, not at all.
Hey guys, so before we go, we have shotgun metrics coming up tomorrow. Visit ApacheNC.com to see that. Also, Immediate Action Combatives. That was Cecil Birch. He'll be here in January. That is IACombatives.com. Go check him out and get in on his next class. Frank, it's been awesome, and looking forward to the next show.
Let's do it.